In today's debate, we advocate for India to significantly ease restrictions on Chinese trade and investment, aiming to boost its global economic status and ensure regional prosperity. Given the current scarcity of investment opportunities and the declining engagement from the West, marked by economic challenges and protectionist policies, China has become a viable alternative for economic partnership. Our proposal addresses the need for a stable and robust economy that benefits both India and the broader region. Hence, we propose the motion. Several clarifications before we introduce our arguments. By easing restrictions, they entail, number one, review and reduction of tariffs. So both China and India would reciprocally reduce tariffs on goods that each country has major advantages on. For example, China on their raw materials and intermediate goods, while India on IT and software services, or electronics, and etc. This way, price dumping practices can be mitigated because there will be no direct competition for the same commodities. Number two, relaxation of investment restriction. So India would ease restriction on Chinese investment without compromising security. So if the opposition team is concerned about this, here are the following reasons why they don't need to. A. The Indian government, in collaboration with tech leaders like Infosys, Wipro, and TCS, has strengthened its cybersecurity framework to protect data and IT systems, reflecting the industry and country's commitment to high security standards. B. Trade and economic cooperation offer mutual benefit to both India and China, making security threats counterproductive, particularly as they could jeopardize China's interest in vital Indian markets. C. China aims to bolster its image as a global responsible leader. Avoiding security confrontation with significant nations like India is important to prevent damaging its reputation and not to deter other countries from future partnership. 3. Regulatory streamlining. So this includes reducing bureaucratic hurdles that impede trade and investment, streamlining visa processes for business travel, and simplifying custom procedures, etc. Moving on to first argument on why this would be beneficial for India's economic progression compared to other options. 4 structural reasons. Number 1, the decline in the West, highlighted by the economic challenges, downsizing of companies, increasing interest rates by the Federal Reserve or European Central Bank, alongside trade wars and protectionist policy. All of this underscore the uncertainty for India in relying on Western economies. Opposition might say that the Western countries offer a more complementary economic partnership due to their need for affordable labor. But this overlooks the evolving nature of the Chinese economy. China's shift towards higher value manufacturing and services opens up new areas for collaboration with India beyond traditional labor-intensive sectors. For example, the collaboration between Indian IT firms and Chinese technology company in areas like artificial intelligence or digital services. This showcases potential synergies that can drive mutual growth without directly competing for the same jobs and commodities. Number 2, the geographical proximity between India and China reduces transportation costs, enhancing the efficiency of trade. Opposition might say that it may raise concern about direct competition, but we say that this claim severely overlooks the humongous benefit for Indian industry, particularly in sectors like electronics, where India has massive advantage in comparison to China. Sectors like electronics requires high supply chain efficiency to ensure goods can penetrate the market quickly, especially to massive market like China. Number 3, massive diversification of Chinese outbound or foreign investment. So opposition cannot say that Chinese investment primarily target sectors that compete with India's strategic industries. China's interest in sectors such as renewable energy, digital infrastructure, or e-commerce aligns with India's development goals and offer opportunity for collaboration rather than competition. The investment by Chinese companies in India's renewable energy sector, for example, supports India's transition to sustainable energy sources, demonstrating how targeted Chinese investment and can complement the India's economic ambitions. Opposition might say there's a case of China's internal debt crisis makes it unreliable investor. We say that this is actually good. Due to low confidence in domestic investment in China, pushes China capital to seek stable investment abroad, including India, which ultimately offering win-win situation. If opposition want to say about the recent Evergrande crisis, we say the Chinese financial system is way more stable and resilient in comparison to many Western economies which facing serious financial crisis. Instances, US banks requiring bailouts while China never resort to such maneuver. Not to mention, China is among those countries with rapid post-pandemic recovery, and this underscores the super resiliency of this country. 4. Lastly, regulatory challenges such as mandatory local ownership or bureaucratic hurdles, for example FDI cap or local content mandates, have historically made India a tough market for Western investors and has deterred West to invest. Now let's analyze whether our proposal is aligned with India's stakeholder interests. Three structural reasons. Number one, India's ambition to become global superpower, as championed by BG Party and Modi, necessitates the robust economic growth. Our proposal is the answer. We need China as a stable, pragmatic, and resilient economic partner. Two, given the looming recession in the West, coupled with the risk of sanctions related to India's neutral stance on Ukraine-Russia conflict, the West would most likely not side with India politically, economically. Three, in contrast, in China, with its effort to become dominant global currency and build economic networks, offers a source of investment free from the political and neoliberal strings attached to Western capital. This aligns with India's need for investment infrastructure to support its booming population and urbanization challenges. Additionally, a stable economic environment in India is crucial for moderating political leaders, including PM Modi, encouraging him to engage more constructively with global community. In this scenario, economic influence becomes a tool for governance rather than military power. This shift is vital because economic prosperity and security tend to reduce the likelihood of internal unrest and external conflicts such as communal violence or tension with neighboring countries like Pakistan. Moreover, an economically vibrant India is more inclined to cooperate with international actors on global issues. The conclusion of first argument is in twofolds. Our proposal can significantly bolster India's economic resilience. Two, our proposal creates more stable environment conducive to more constructive engagement with the global community. All in all, India's strengthening ties with China is great for economy, great for security. Argument number two, on concern over China's influence. So the possibility of China using its economic relation to exert excessive influence of India is definitely a valid concern. Nevertheless, we are going to prove to you why this is not going to happen in three structural reasons. Firstly, to begin with, any aggressive action from China might prompt not only internal pushback within India, but also draw scrutiny and possibly intervention from Western nations that regard India as a key ally in maintaining balance in the region. For instance, increased military collaboration between India and the US, as seen in joint naval exercises in Indian Ocean, exemplifies how geopolitical alliance can serve as a counterweight to this potential overreach. Secondly, India's strategic position in the Indian Oceans serves as a natural counterbalance to China's ambition. The importance of this region for global trade routes, particularly for energy supplies, means that any attempt by China to dominate India could jeopardize its own economic interests and security objectives. Lastly, China's global foreign policy focuses on expanding its influence through BRI, prioritizes economic expansion and soft power over territorial aggression. So China's engagement in multinational organizations and agreement is often framed as an effort to bolster its image as a constructive global player. For instance, China's participation in climate change talks or its commitment to the Paris Agreement highlights its attempt to lead global governance issues, a stance that would be hugely undermined by aggressive moves against India. So in summary, while the concern over China's potential influence is understandable, the combination of India's strategic defenses, international alliances, and China's own global aspiration act as a natural deterrent against any undue influence. Because it is good for India, we can control China. For all these reasons, we beg to propose.
The next verse apa dia bro?
Oh ya.
Paslah lagi.
Oh ini ya.
Apa?
Okay. Alright, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think I need to do some little characterization and setups before we start into this debate, and what we think that the opponent government has left behind is that first we have breaks existing in the status quo. This setup is why trade and investment has established in terms of like multilateral connection. So we think that bilateral commitment between China and India is should not be like to be eased in kinds of ways, because we already have existing policies in BRICS which always have these better check and balances per se coming from like Brazil or like the other countries inside, and this is why we think that this when we talk about the bilateral connection between these two, when it comes to economical purposes, we think that it is not the correct time, or this is not It is not important anymore to begin with. A decade ago, they were the most like China and India. A decade ago has a very huge great bilateral agreements together. Like they basically China built India. So we think that it's not the time anymore because they already have did that in the past and they did succeed, and I will explain that later on. But secondly, China has already significantly have power over ASEAN and Africa. But they get more aggressive, right? They get more power hungry. They get more binding. They go into security rights and all that, right? So India and the whole world basically knows this, like how they used to treat India and how they used to treat ASEAN influenced how South Africa wanted to accept China in the first place. But seeing again, but this is like a turnover effect because now China is not like the old China that has that they used to be, the ones that is benevolent and all of that. So under those reasons, we think that this restriction is essentially very much important to begin with. But thirdly, India is huge, right? They do have power, like even greater than Indonesia per se. If you want to talk about population or like the amount of land that they have and things like that. But they managed to get into BRICS even. Like they have multi-million entertainment business, like the Bollywoods and all. Like their tourism is doing amazing, coming from like Hinduism. Attraction, also spirituality, coming from industrial and agricultural incomes as well. But moving on towards some several rebuttal that will be highlighted under my second speaker, but I will still engage on PM. Firstly, talking about all of their mechanism on how it will be secure for India. We think that it is not significant, but even if we have to still engage on this, that shows that India's IT and like India's security are already great enough, so there is no need for more like investment into India coming from China specifically. So like there's that. So we think that that shows that all of those investment that they did a decade or like 2 decades ago is already enough, and now that they are being more aggressive, we think that it is time to never ever like ease this restriction to begin with. But sectors like electronics, they claim, it's like they say it's better in China, it's good in India, and China is like lacking on this. We think that this is simply untrue. China, like, you know, the whole thing I talk about invested a decade ago to India, and that's why it's very much why India thrived in IT right now. That's all because of China. And they thrive to this day, and that means that China's investment on them did work, and like maybe it pays off. But then you see China wanted more, so it comes back to my setup, right? Like China wanted more, and we believe that a lot of things that India has managed to do, what will become the country that they are right now. Leading in IT especially, even when the whole world thinks India like there's some sort of like poor country and such, this is why we think that it's not important to ease this restriction anymore. But before that, yes.
Okay, China is soon to replace US as a global superpower. Don't you think it's good for India to increasing ties with stronger allies compared to the West?
The thing is that compared to the West or compared to the US, the way that China has did their things, like the way that China has been very much showing this whole aggressiveness over the years is something that we don't want India to become more binded into. Again, they already have BRICS, and that's the great counterbalance for them, for whatever China is trying to do to them. And this is why we simply think that even when US wanted to come in, like the West will eventually always come in. US will always try to win China anyway. So we think that even with the restriction in China and West coming in, we say that it's okay, whether it's Europe, whether it's US, we say that it's okay for them to come and also work with India in terms of many ways. But moving on towards my arguments, right? Firstly, one argument, why this is inherently harmful and will only be a zero sum for India. One, we understand that China and India is both large in like population, but if even government like consider India is not yet enough to provide, we say that there are already great factories and they are already great industrial agriculture, you have Bollywood and things like that. Those kinds of things have made India a big country that even can like contribute to BRICS and be considered as a country that is actually influential, right? poverty exists in both sides anyway, so let's not act like China is like this very good country that lets their that want to invest and like want to do good towards other countries, when poverty also exists in China the same way it does exist in India. But the thing is that China has already power over so many other countries, like huge regions like Africa and ASEAN, as what I said in the beginning. So like when China trade like trying to get more aggressive, or like more China's products will go in. China is well known for their like binding policies, again sending in their workers, so like most of the time it is the trade-off, or like okay, you get cheaper products per se, or like we will build more factories for you, but we will have workers coming from China to work there. So like you're taking away the whole opportunity for like these people having for India's like to being lifted up from poverty itself, when they're lacking in terms of like employments in India itself. But thirdly, about the scrutiny for China, we say it is not possible any other way. There are too many power that China has already hold in. So scrutiny coming even not India exclusively, we think that the main idea of scrutiny coming from China is not possible because there are too many power that they hold, and they are even like the UN, they already have veto power. Like they have that much power in comparison to India. But okay, time's up. Very proud of those.
Okay, thank you for that speech.
In 3, 2, 1. Both of the nations are already so ambitious. Why restricting things just because of trading with each other? Now let's delve into the argument that has been given by the leader of oppositions. They said that the trade and investment has been established, so we shouldn't improve it more because we already have a better bilateral connection already now. But here's the thing. I mean, my first speaker already said that they have so many benefits that they could gain, and we could talk about it. Their geographical proximity between India and China, and not just that, their internal relations are already good. Even we talking, they even made an organization like BRICS. Why not further improve into that? Why not prove it more? Why not delve into more of those connections to create a more greater connection between them? They already like two friends who shares transportations. Why not delve into making one room instead? Now here's the things. They also said that. Both of the countries are already influential and big country. They have things like their own entertainment, their own resource, and for Indian sides, they probably had a great agriculture and entertainment just as Bollywood. The opposition side of the house says that it's already enough to push them towards on their own to become more independent, without restricting more to the Chinese sides of the house. But here's the thing. When is the last time you saw a great Bollywood movie? When is the last time you heard from the health side of the Indian society is getting better? Not so much. It's getting worse instead. I cannot even remember the last time there's a great Bollywood movie that has come out even challenging the Hollywood than the westerns. Now, moving on to the sides. Yes, please.
So only China can exclusively help for like the whole health situation, and like the Bollywood movie that you're talking about. Is China exclusive?
We're not saying that China is the exclusive, but if China, let's admit it. Even India has already unconsciously knowing that they're getting more further than the other developed country if they want to be more progressively, and if they want to, they already has countries like China that could help them to back up with all of them. The only reasons that why they want to do it, because they also are ambitious country, and not to mention most of their great people already migrated to UK or US, UK and US, and even becoming a citizen in there. That's only what this benefits and benefiting for them to taking their own chances. Yes, please.
The PM talked about how Western states no longer have the power to counterbalance China. This is precisely why India should be neutral and even counterbalance India, because in that the dynamics of the world means that China has no check and balance.
But what is the need of counterbalance if they don't use their power to be aggressively taking over the country itself? I mean, let's go into reality. China has the great economic legs in BRICS, but are they impose their will into others like US? No. Even now they had so many medias like entertainment, technology, but they don't put a chip on your Chinese phone, or they don't put their ads on their games. We can see it from there. They aren't imposing their will, just like how US saying that you have to support any other kinds of LGBT when some countries don't. Now here's the thing. Now let me delve into my argument. Now we can say that society now are more pragmatic even to the economy itself. We now know that even people will become more progressively when talking towards money. Not just people, even countries also apply to them. China won't mess with India, knowing that India is also an ally to UK and Israel. So that when they try to do anything wrong with them, the one who will be first attacking is the US. They already have their minds on economically, but why they want to just adding their problems more into making India's their enemy. Not only that, India is a potential ally with them. They already close. They already have the resource, agriculture. Not just that. Most of the India are greater in IT stuff.
But the fact that China is already in Africa and also in Asia, and how they fight against ASEAN in the South China Sea proves that they are very aggressive in power projecting in literally every region.
But we are talking with the status quo. We are talking about trading and investment here. Yeah, yes, they are everywhere right now. But they aren't imposing things like onto people. They aren't making things difficult for every others. They accept their challenger. They accept the challenger even until now. To prove that they aren't here to make things like taking over things not just substantially, but they want to open up not only for their own benefit, but to make sure that the Western one taking over things economically. Now China's is just like my first speaker said, are ambitious country. They not right now, with the dollars going up by every day by day, they don't want to lose out any chances to taking out their own yuans to become a challenger to dollar. They already been targeted by US itself as an enemy country that could lead them, that could threaten them. Why would they adding more their problems in here just by making Indians as their new enemy? But thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that speech. Lanjut, Sekap.
Juga langsung aja.
Mari bisa ambil fotonya.
So I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Understand how BRICS was originally grouped because these countries are capable within the developing countries itself, right? They're able to grow rapidly. OG says that in their side they're able to increase their economic growth because they're able to maximize the improvement between China and India. However, then underline what my first speaker have already told you on how India has its own power, meaning that they have the power to
to improve their own economic growth. So several rebuttals coming from OG then. OG told you on how under their side China and India has cyber protections, and it's not going to be it's not going to be the problem if then the harms could happen under our side. Few responses to this then. One, government will need to explain then how they're going to assure that such unfair trade practices will not exist under their side. Underline then, when you ease the restriction, it's going to be more likely for India to be exposed to these risks, right? And secondly, government will need to prove to you on how, because of this existence of unfair trade practices, they will able to assure that India companies will not have any job losses within its country itself, because understand that these types of countries have their own strategic in order for them to improve on their own. A second rebuttal then, they also told you on how they told you on how China currently has a stronger power than US, which is why it's better to work with bigger and developed countries. Understand then how China itself has its own political problems, right? Which at the end of the day, it's only going to affect the situations of its own economy. So it's not going to be justified to say that it's going to be exclusively happening under their side comparatively under our side. And last but not least, they also told you on how there's going to be such existence of diaspora. We say that's not going to be exclusive, because even for example, even if these countries migrate, it's not going to be the problem, because understand that that India itself has a power, right? India pull themselves in with great deals, with great deals per se when they're able to migrate from other countries. So moving on to my arguments then on how BRICS strategies in terms of trade and investment is already enough. The existence of BRICS is already built because these countries are rapidly developing, right? It means that these countries already have a clear plan and clear picture of how their economy condition will look like in the future. Government here needs to prove several things then. One, how will they able to make sure that India would be better if they ease the restrictions? And secondly, how, even if that's the case, understand how BRICS is already have already established several policies in which this has brought several impacts within the countries and within the economies itself. Underline then what has been the establishment of BRICS is that they're able to pull up the economic growth that's happening in the current status quo. BRICS have already expanded their members, right? Meaning that even without the needs of the China, even without the additional help from China, India will still have the ability to improve their economic growth. What happened then in the current status quo is that understand how these countries are able to maximize the help within each other, right? How BRICS have already dragged several countries to join with the groups such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, and whatnot as the countries that are also currently rapidly improving. So by saying that the Chinese trade and investment would always be helpful towards the India, it's not something that cannot it's something that cannot be clearly exclusive, because understand then how the expansion of these BRICS members have already helped several things. So several extensions coming from my first speaker. My first speaker already told you on how India has its own power, right? They have the power to create such entertainment. So a few reasons why this could be the tipping point of the debate. One, we think that's already justified to say how this can bring greater impacts under our side, right? Because realize how India getting into the BRICS group itself already shows how they're capable of managing to develop at the end of the day, right? It really shows how India are able to
maximize the use of their natural resources to able to maximize the use of their human capital in order for them to get into the BRIC member, which the BRIC group, which these types of members who are included in the BRICS are countries that are rapidly growing. What's going to happen inside government is that they will always have to rely on the Chinese trade and investment, which is not going to be helpful at the end of the day, because you cannot be truly just depend on a particular country, right? Let's say there's going to be some problems within the India and Chinese itself. It's not going to be inclusive to say on how these countries, on how India will be better at the end of the day, right? So moving on to my also extensions coming from my first speaker. My first speaker has already told you on how there's going to be such entertainment.
Okay, so West and North Eastern Asia currently try to build their local economy and maximizing domestic people to be employed. Why India would be prioritized by this West and Northeastern Asia in comparison to China? India easier to get into China because they have mutual advantage. How do you respond to that?
One thing, however, it's been clearly mentioned to me by my first speaker on how the US will always be better than the China itself, right? Realize how like the US already has a strong power from the very first beginning. So it's not going to be clearly inclusive to say how like China will always have the tipping help coming towards India, right? So like it's been already clear mentioned to you before on how like through the help of like these countries, India will always have the ability to improve and to like empower within the country and within the own people itself. So in comparison, what's going to happen then? Inside government is that they will always have to prove to you on why like the security will always be better under their side, on how like the existence of like the cyber protection will always guarantee you like this on how like India itself will be able to like maximize their own human capital and their own natural resources without any manipulative actions coming from China. So in conclusion, we think that our side will always be better because we have told you on several reasons as to why India itself are able to grow without the extent need of China itself, and we have already told you on how like under our side we'll be able to like make sure that that India is able to work within the BRICS members that have already expanded within our side. Hence, we are very much proud to oppose.
Yeah, thank you for that speech. The closing of debate of Sesi.
Oke, yang baru POI itu baru Maria sama Nailna. Yang mana ini? Yang lain?
Tadi mau tapi mirip-mirip intinya.
Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panels, I think what this debate needs is not just on how China and India can cooperate with each other against the Western economy rather than using their influence against each other, but also how this can carry over domestically. Few rebuttals then. Firstly, the opposition paints that the image that China is not benevolent, but that is not essentially true. That just glosses over certain key facts. Why would China be prioritizing tricking the world to conform to their interests when they have initiatives such as One Belt, One Road or the Belt and Road Initiative that has been particularly helpful, especially towards ASEAN countries to improve their infrastructure and so on and so forth? Why then would they be able to form BRICS as not just as an economic alliance, but also as to present an alternative against the Western global financial system, which has been extremely stringent and not necessarily particularly conforming to other countries' interests as well. But secondly, opposition states that both China and India have power to oppose the US anyway, and so it wouldn't necessarily, yeah.
Then can you explain why China is projecting in Southeast Asia where they're clearly claiming islands that are not theirs?
Okay, so if you're essentially giving that example as a reason as to why India should restrict China, understand that U.S. and other Western powers also project power in Southeast Asia anyway, and so Chinese power projection still pales in comparison towards the Western powers, and that is exactly what they want to get rid of in this case. So. Again, on my rebuttals, opposition states that both China and India have power to oppose the US anyway. But just because they have power, it doesn't mean it's equal. There's a reason why they form BRICS in this sense. It's to accumulate their influence. It's to accumulate the power so that they can at least have a chance to oppose Western influence in this case. But secondly, India has less GDP than China, so no, India has less GDP than China. So the notion that they have equal power undermines their actual interests and capacities. So in this case, it wouldn't necessarily make sense to assume that because China and India has power to oppose the US, that should basically be a prerequisite as to why they should be restricting each other anyway. So let's see what the status quo really is. So trade and investment between China and India is already more or less restricted due to tensions caused by territorial disputes, but also as both sides have explained to you, there have also been security concerns and so on and so forth. But as OG has explained to you, Western economy is also declining, and therefore it becomes an opportunity for both China and India to essentially cooperate with each other. They're also in an economic alliance bonded by common interests to counteract against Western economic interests. No, so mutual cooperation is already possible, but is not just already possible, but also vital for these countries to be able to advance their interests and so on and so forth. So let's see what the characteristics for India, for instance. India's economy is already volatile in this sense. A few points why. Income per capita is so low that it affects their purchasing power, and so it affects on their demands and on their requirements and so on and so forth. India's economy is also shrinking, but also the fact that China's GDP is 5 times the size of India's should also be taken into consideration in this case. But secondly, China and India also have mutual concerns on how the Western-led global financial system will be restricting not just their own economic interests, but also the developing countries as a whole. So in this case, our goal here is not just to essentially allow for China and India, but also for other countries to counteract Western influence from the global financial system, but also how this can actually benefit impoverished people in this sense, due to how the income per capita of India is low in this case. So a few extensions. Firstly, they're already in an economic alliance formed by their common goal to create a financial system independent from Western influence. And so, no, thank you. A financial system independent from Western influence, which in this case they will be presenting an alternative against against a Western financial system, because countries are now realizing how the Western financial system is already restricting their economic interests. So imposing restrictions would be bad in this case, because firstly it reduces confidence in what China and India has to offer, because it more or less mirrors how a Western global financial system would operate. When restrictions become more or less an option in this case, it basically mirrors how Western financial system also restricts, also gives stringent regulations on certain economic interests and so on and so forth. But without an alliance such as BRICS, India would also have to both India and China would also have to conform to Western regulations that are also already consequential in this case. Second extension, then India has a lot more to lose because income per capita is low. India's population rely more on cheaper products in this case. So because their income per capita is low, they obviously rely on more cheaper products. Why then restrictions would be consequential in this case? Because if, for example, India doesn't have access to, say, Chinese markets that offer cheaper products, it would essentially be, cheaper products. It would essentially be restrictive towards how India would approach their economy and so on and so forth. Under these reasonings, we are very much proud to propose.
Narendra Modi and BJP wants to turn India into China 2.0, but you cannot do so when you bend the knee towards China, as they have progressively power project within all regions in the world. So how CEO is going to contribute to the debate? But first, how does opening contribution to the debate so far? OG is inherently incoherent in this debate because one, they are bending the knee towards aggressive China, and they relies on their own characterization of China being benevolent, which doesn't necessarily exist in status quo. But second, the terrible recount of the status quo is happening in OG, where they somehow live in an alternative world where they don't necessarily get their facts right. But OO, what is problematic about OO in this debate, and therefore why CO will always win over OO? You should treat OO's case as a footnote that you should consider to delete from your laptop, as it is only filling your storage. Their analysis lacks urgency and likelihood because it relies on two things that only bring marginal benefits to begin with. Because one, India is only there to balance China with their own ambitious projects. Second, the idea of unfair practices that DPM brought lacks likelihood, but even then, it is a worst case. We are going to explain to you why, even if trade relations are going to be positive, means in the best case scenario, China and India is going to have mutual growth, why then it is still harms the overall global dynamics of the world. CG, well, they're repetitive, don't care about them. So what are our rebuttal sources in the debate? 4 rebuttals. First, they talk about how Western states and companies no longer lucrative means that they cannot necessarily check and balance India. Therefore, check and balance China. Therefore, India should always bend the knee towards a very powerful China and to reap all the benefits. This is exactly why this is problematic, because then no longer China have the check and balance to make sure that their policies are not too aggressive, in which they only rely on their self-interest within the trade, right? Note the comparative advantage characterization under GOV doesn't necessarily exist. Economic policies and characteristics of both China and India are actually quite similar. Massive labor markets exist in both sides. Massive IT industry also exists in China. Therefore, the characterization of why China will then support India's IT industry, which is their biggest number one competitors out of USA, no longer makes sense. China have the interest in status quo to opt in, to have influence on these industries within India, because they always want to eliminate their competitors, or at the very least be able to regulate their competitors. But the fact that similarities of industry exist means that counterbalance are likely to succeed. The fact that India have massive labor markets means they have the counterbalance of China's labor market. So that's what I think the protection of labors, which are going to be far better in status quo, because China no longer have the exclusive benefit of efficient labor market. But yes,
it is like that China and India is similar. China is having their own advantage in raw materials and capital goods. India is on electronics and software services. So please do not say lie in this debate.
The fact that there are so many IT companies in Chinese IT companies in Indonesia, for example, Oppo, Xiaomi, proves that China's IT industry is also powerful as India. But also note that the reason why China is so powerful in terms of resources is because they geographically is large. So does India. So I don't know why this is something that you should a characterization that you should buy in this debate. So continue. Why similarities of industries means check and balance are likely to succeed? First, moreover, I think the voluntary support from the West, as they are getting weaker, are more likely to exist because they have always the interest of to counterbalance China. When India and our side are able to have the intention to counterbalance India, chances are they're not going to be alone. So, telling about on OG's case on the current status quo, we can say it exists, but what they don't tell you is any of the specific powers of India contingent on India's ability to refuse every Chinese ambition. On China's relative neutrality on the region is important to begin with. I'm going to talk about this more on my argument. Second, but note that the prerequisites of China's ability to India's ability to counterbalance China that already exists in status quo as the characterization of OG are no longer exist, because political relaxation of your policy is also going to exist, in which China is going to require India to buy military weapons from China, or to secede relations with the US, for example. Also, we flip this by saying that all of the extensive mechanism to counterbalance China under GOV is precisely what should still continue to power India should still continue to power project within the region, because it proves likelihood of probability of China to be benevolent because India is no longer the weak person who always wants to bend the knee. Third, the Western influence idea under CG does not exist, because first they have to explain first they have to tell you whether or not they opted into the characteristics of OG, talking about why Western countries are getting weak. But even yes, exactly why BRICS lost its purpose, then India has no longer have the interest to counterbalance Western countries. Then they have the interest to counterbalance China. But second, even if they don't, exactly why China should be, exactly why they should be neutral for China. You should not buy government's ability to Chinese markets because they don't explain what is likely to exist. So one massive extension on our side. Why this is a lot better for the global community in which India maintains its neutrality. Second layer, two layers. First on what's good for the South Asian region, and second what's good for the whole world. India is the only bastion of powerful economy within the region. Pakistan cannot fight them economically. Sri Lanka, yeah, and also Bangladesh. So I think it is within the India's interest to control the region, to make sure that industries are able to dominate the labor markets within the regions, and how they can able to control the South Asian region, which is economically because they have access towards the Atlantic Ocean, the ocean within of India. But not what is important then. I think India's power projections is within the interest because one is likely to exist, but not the narrative of wariness towards India is the prerequisite of that power projections. Why this is the case? Because first, in order for you to be able to power project, you need the ability for every country's consent to bend the knee towards you. I think for you to be able to control the region, you cannot have a competition in that as well. But second, why is it good for the international community? I think China, I think India should always balance China within BRICS, within a global dynamics, a balance of power to exist because Western influence are getting weaker. Therefore, India should take that role. For these reasons, let's go pause here.
Okay, thank you for that speech. To summarize the debate from Gulf, second TG.
Ini masih baru Maria sama Nail ya, POI ya. Sebelum itu ada terima kasih.
Start the speech. In 3, 2, 1. Restriction is not a solution. It's never been a good decision for India to be that strict into China when China is the only hope who are willing to invest and accept a whole likeness of India in terms of economy. What do we need to understand? In 2014, historically, there's a presence of economic ties between India and China. It proves to you China is having more understanding about the condition in India and have that interest to solve a lot of issues that currently happen in India. Investment and trade from China is not only benefiting China but also in India. This is a new perspective that you need to count on because what opposition tries to say it here, all of the case of government is only benefiting China itself and make China become so powerful, but it's not true, right? Because this investment is also benefiting India and India itself. Because we cannot deny the fact that a lot of China production, which relatively safe, is something that really helpful in terms of the Indian people who are living in a poverty line, and they help them to survive by making them can purchase that kind of item or necessities that they and fulfilling their needs, right? Our stance is very clear. We open up the opportunity for China to have investment and trade for the sake of both prosperity, India and China. I'm going to give you the characterization of India who are from OG. This is what make our case should be credited more. We say India in terms of the population and the country. It's true that what Maria already said, that they are huge and have a big population, but it's not equal with them being a superpower country. India is one of the developing countries who still suffer with its own GDP issue. They need to be secure first to be that independent later. Opposition have a burden to explain to us how ready India in terms of economy to be that confident to restrict all of the economic because we say that form of restriction should be hand in hand with the preparation that they have secure first, right? It looks like when
when they want to do like restriction, all the production including domestic item necessities would be no longer allowed in India. The question that becomes, what is the replacement of these necessities? The India we question, is it like in the India production? Explain to us how ready they are. If they cannot explain to us how actually ready this India to do their economy independently, their benefit can fly. If that happen, there are only two scenarios might happen under their side of the house. Number one, with low purchasing power, people in India would suffer even to purchase a daily necessities in India. And second of all, the scenario is India might produce their own production, but with lack of economic power, with the quality lack of economic power, it looks like the quality would be that low. So it only in conclusion we say that it is the restriction, meaning we want to protect the India itself, the vulnerable one. Yes.
Can you prove to us why the existence of Chinese products and companies within India will not harm India's global companies that are owned by very vulnerable people?
Okay, I'm going to explain to you in my second rebuttal. It's easily to integrate one another. We're going to add more analysis, but later on. We're going to add more analysis in terms of the likelihood of India willing to invest in China. Number one, they are basically alliance, right, in an economic ties. I already told you historically in 2014 they have like the same interests and yada yada yada. And also in BRICS, in order to counter the Western influence over global financial. And second of all, they have the same sector that need to be focused on, which is technology and e-commerce, which means that they would support each other in terms of this, right? Alright, this is also will answer, I'm going to rebut OO case. They scared of unfair practices. Amira literally taught you how manipulative and evil China is, right? We say their concern is very unlikely under two reasons. Number one, it's unlikely because massive unfair practices could become the bad track record for China itself. In this global era, the image is so important. Is so important, especially when China willing to have like a good image for global cooperation, right? It's very unlikely for China with this China ambition to make to be done unfair practices, because they want to maintain their image to have like a global cooperation with other countries as well, right? That's why we think that it's very sometimes under their side of the house. Second of all, each restriction does not mean we don't create a regulation towards investment itself, right? We still have the possibility of to make like regulation to topple down the possibility of unfair practices, or like what the concept of Kanail talked about, like it will take away a lot of opportunity job, because like the regulation could the question that come from India might pursue their own interests as well, right? That's why to conclude, the question is answered and safe anyway under their side of the house, right? Yes, please.
Do you think India is wrong for being afraid and careful, like the way China has the same power with Russia and how they literally start the war with Ukraine?
India, I think India is not fault to make that to have that kind of stance to protect the country, but what you need to understand, the law purchasing power that they have, the vulnerability of the economy that they have should make them compromises that things to open up the opportunity to make their people or even like the economy survive at the very first point. But and then I think that all the argument coming from CO, talking about they living in talking about they want the stance India should be neutral. It's a very risk thing, because in this kind of situation there is a neutrality. Neutrality is just a lie when you always have to side to a certain country to have like a stability and to have a stance, to have a cooperation, and that's something that's very needed in terms of like international things, right? It's something that you need to pursue to make it clear the stance that and to make a global cooperation. If you are being neutral, it's very hard for like the other nation to identify the stance, and it makes them no longer want to cooperate with you. That's all we're so proud to propose.
Yeah, thank you for that speech. To close the debate.
Ladies and gentlemen, realize that the narrative of China, yes, it does has a strong economy traits and have been really advantage things at the very first place. Yet, seeing China from the other perspective, we believe that China are volatile. Seeing from the conditions in international relations, a lot of tension, etc. Seeing this impact will create a problematic dependency if India receive either trade or investment. I will explain that more from the summary of the debate at the end of the day. Okay, OG said that China interest on energy, battery, and etc. It will create more advantages at the end of the day. Yet, allowing to grasp into the vulnerable sectors such as energy, where the main topic of each country is this now, we believe that it will create a dominance under that certain area, which create at the end of the day, Indian people who are local people will not going to take part on that. At the end of the day, it will create loss more on India side of the house. Secondly, about government want to take further this economic relations, considering they have already been related at the very first place. We believe that this will create much more grasp of China into India economic systems, which they will dominance at the end of the day. I will explain that more under the summary at the end of the day. And also, they believe that they could control it, and we say that as the China characterization, we see that from the history itself, they are perceived as something aggressive trade, etc. in terms of international relations, and they have such a problematic history. Seen from the history, and also from coming up from CG, they said that China is the only one who are interested to invest on India itself. We believe that China, and they also believe that China know more about India, therefore they were more likely going to solve the problem from India. We aware that this will create a consequence at the end of the day by perceiving India as a country who have lack of economy at the very first place. It will leads you to understand that India's ability to evolve at the end of the day is not going to happen. This is a dangerous point of view coming from the government itself. And secondly, about Gov will bring the case as India has low economy and etc. I have already explained. Also, lastly, about regulations will happen inside of our house, but in the reality that if you open even slightest considerations, the fact that China have been in India at the very first place, we believe that India have been are being vulnerable, more likely going to accept policies coming from China. Therefore, we believe that we need to substantially ease we don't need to ease any restrictions on Chinese trade and investment. Okay, first, about problematic dependency on China. The characterization of China is volatile. China's condition might be worse, more incentive to let you fail because it can then take securities in the form of land or assets from you, considering from the Sri Lankan port and etc. And also, how India is now. We believe that coming from the BRICS and etc., they have safety net helping India to expand by expansion of the member, and the interest is create more stable economic stability. And secondly, about seeing from their resources, India has a lot of resource. Even though it is not developed yet, we believe that by allowing China to grasp into Indian system, it will took all the resources and left no crumbs for the India at the end of the day, even if they will develop it in the future. And also, China had invest long way ago. Yes, they are successful. They bring success seen from the India now. Yet we believe that it is enough now that China shift into a more aggressive, demanding, and controlling, which leads to harmful towards India economic system. Secondly, how accepting other for example, investment and trade is better. First, they are more likely going to less aggressive. Second is the history of China is demanding as the world in the world trade matter, and thirdly, not let the China grasp deeper into India economic systems. Even if Western influence, we have this kind of Western influential, we believe that it will balancing and diversifying. It will incentivizing India to explore trade and investment opportunity. Secondly, it will retaliation against China's actions limiting economic engagement could be used as a form of retaliations against the perceived aggressive economy by China, such as border disputes, and thirdly, inflow of foreign direct investment it will open India business with which better access to large consumer market, much need capital, create jobs, and will base on producing at the end of the day. Therefore, choosing other such as Western is more beneficial at the end of the day rather than China. Mapping China. We could see the advantage coming from China. Economic interest of China is in the stability of your region. Our response is considering from the outcome from this China towards our towards in the India economic system, it will not going to end well. And secondly, China access to the market, cost dumping because of overproductions can compete with economy of scale and technology, and they are perceived more have more conditionality, seizing of the assets, for example, the Sri Lankan port and etc. Therefore, we believe that our side. That's why we believe we're very proud to oppose.